G'day and welcome to episode 6 of the V-Strom makeover. In this episode I'll be extending my suspension travel and raising the bike. These bikes are very low. If you own a V-Strom you'll know that they're lower than a snake's belly. There's bugger all ground clearance under them. I've kind of learnt to live with that. I know how to get over obstacles and you've just got to pick your lines carefully, but the lack of suspension travel is what makes it hard work off-road. After looking at new shocks, they're very expensive. I started looking at different adventure bikes and see if I could find something that might match. The YSS website has a specifications tab for all their shocks, which is very handy. It tells you the length of the shock and the size of the top and bottom mounts. So I went through all the different adventure bikes until I found one that matched up pretty well, and that was the Honda Africa Twin. The shock is 50mm longer than the V-Stroms and it has the same mounts. I didn't want to gamble buying a brand new aftermarket one, so I searched for a second-hand shock and eventually found one for $240 delivered, which I think is pretty good. So I just hope it fits. So we're looking at about 2 inches longer. Same width, same size hole, same. Theoretically it should fit. Whether it is too long is another thing. At a minimum I'll be going back to the standard links. These are the standard ones. I've got the raised ones in there. And I have I've made up a set of lowering links in case I need them, in case I need to lower the bike any. What I didn't take into account is the spring diameter of this shock is a lot bigger than the V-Stroms. So I'm just hitting this bracket. I don't have far. By the way, to get this in, I've ended up dismantling half the bike. I had to take the exhaust off. To get the exhaust off, I ended up taking that bash plate off. Yeah, I've had to grind a little bit of the top of the mount off to let it swing, and now I'm just hitting this bracket here, which I believe is for the centre stand, which I no longer have on. Yeah, we're just missing out and going through the hole. So I guess my only option is to get the grinder out again. Everything's just done up loose at the moment. So I've got the standard links in with an Africa Twin rear shock. Let's see how much height I've gained. With the standard shock and standard link I was at 990. With standard shock and raised links, I was at 1010, so 1010. I'm at 1100, holy crap. So I've gone up 90 millimeters. Ooh, okay. I might try the lowering links and see how we go. Okay, so I've just fitted these lowering links. These are 10 millimeters longer than standard. If you had a standard shock on, that should lower the bike 28 millimeters. There's a ratio of about 1 to 2.8 with links on these bikes. So we're sitting at about 1060. So we're about 2 inches higher than what I was originally. So to get this to fit, I had to grind a little bit out of the Sena stand bracket. I'd fit 10 millimeter longer links, but I ran into another problem, and I've had to put the stock exhaust back on. Problem being with the bike, this has nothing to do with the shock itself. If you can see the gap between the exhaust and the swing arm, because the bike's higher, the swing arm's lower, which reduces that gap, and the Delkevic exhaust has a bigger bend on it. The stock exhaust tucks in nice and neat. This stock 2-into-1 section is actually a lot better than the Delkevic. Unfortunately, it's from there back is just plain old ugly. Yes, I took it for a test ride and it was actually quite good. I thought the geometry would be all out of whack, and it is off, but yeah, it felt better than I expected it to. So I looked at different options for the front end. One of them is to replace the front end entirely, something from another bike, similar to what I've done with the back now. I've had trouble finding things and they've been very expensive. Another option I saw was to use inners out of a DR650s and the outer from the DL. That way you get to use the same brakes, same wheels, same speedo, everything like that. The DR tube is very long. It is a bit too long and you have to slide it through the top clamps, and you have to use the dampening rod, which is also a bit too long, and the people actually put spacers in them, and the thread's an M10 instead of an M8. So it sounded like a bit of mucking around to me, so I decided just to extend my dampening rods. I have seen this done before. The method I saw, the guy cut it through the middle, put in a 40mm piece, welded both ends and machined it back down again. I went for a slightly different approach. I made up a new end, longer end. I cut the old end off that used to be there. So I made up this new end piece. I would have liked to have made the whole bit, but I don't have the gear to do it. So I made up this end piece longer. I cut the old bit off, welded the new bit on, and machined it down. I made this oversize so I didn't have to get it exactly straight when I welded it on. Then by the time I machined it down, it trued up nicely. So this is what actually restricts your travel. So I'll quickly show you how this works. So the dampening rod goes inside here. Pokes out the bottom. So normally your spring would go in there and your end cap. Okay, so bolt goes through the bottom of this into the bottom of this. Yeah, bolt goes through the bottom of the lower leg into the dampening rod. So that dampening rod stays still and this moves up and down. Okay, so we're ready to start putting the forks back together. Now I mentioned I extended these by 40 millimeters. Now the reason I came up with 40 millimeters because I'd read someone had done it before, and I also did the maths and worked out that's quite safe to do. These fork tubes, you're relying on the bushes there and the one in the top of here to keep these in line. So if you were to extend the dampening rod too much, you would allow the tube to come up too far and you wouldn't have much overlap, and this can kink around and bind up. So you've got to have enough overlap to keep these in line. The inner tube is 645 millimeters long. So that means I still have 165 millimeters overlapping. So that's plenty. That's how much overlap I've got between the bushes. Oh yeah, forks are back in. So I've also made up a Speedo eliminator. So while it was off, I cut off the brackets off the front, give it a new coat of paint. Righto, we'll let her down, see how she looks. So I finally got the bike back together, out on a test ride. I had to put longer brake lines on the front. The bike feels really good on the road. I was quite surprised. I was worried about it being a bit top heavy. These bikes are a bit top heavy and you make them taller, well, it's going to get worse. But it's handling really nice. So a recap on what I've done to the bike. 2016 Honda Africa Twin shock on the rear. I had a bit of trouble with the diameter of the spring, and I cut into my center stand mount. Now, I didn't really have to. Once everything was mounted up, it's cleared fine. So it is doable without cutting that, but you just have a hard time getting that bolt into it. The other issue, because the bike's higher, I couldn't fit the Delkevic pipe back. I couldn't fit the Delkevic pipe back in, so I've had to put the standard pipe on. And yeah, I think that's about it for the rear end. The front end, I've extended the dampening rods by 40 millimeters. So that's raised the bike and given me more suspension travel. I've got the same spring in there, same spaces, nothing else changed except the brake lines. While I was at it, I removed my old Speedo because I have the Acewell Speedo. I don't use the standard one anymore, so I put a Speedo eliminator on. And I've raised my bars. Then my brakes are feeling really good. Yeah, I thought the front end might be a bit spongy feeling, but it feels really good. These springs are undersprung for these bikes, but because I've moved so much weight off the front end, they work fine. The springs actually work really good with the bike now that I've removed the weight. Anyway, we'll go find a bit of dirt, see how it handles in the dirt, and then I'll try and find something to try and find a rough track to go over and see how it feels. See how that increased suspension travel helps. Well, the bike feels fantastic on this smooth dirt road. We're going to try and find something a bit rougher, hey? So really happy with how the bike's gone today. It's exceeded my expectations. Pretty nervous taking it out after doing all this work, not exactly sure how it's going to handle. The bike's a lot taller now. I was a bit worried about it being too top heavy and being unstable, but it feels fine. Handles the road surprisingly well. So I just need to fine tune that shock a bit. It just feels a little bit stiff. It wants to kick out on me. So I think I need to just maybe back off the rebound dampening. I'm not used to having all that adjustment. Let's see how she goes around this roundabout. Oh yeah! Let's get her up to 100. I don't think I'll scrape the pegs anymore. I've got it sideways around there. Oh man, awesome. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can see all my crazy adventures on my new raised V-Strom. So that is it for the V-Strom makeover series. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been great fun modifying my bike. It's been stressful but fun. I really love what I've done with the bike. It's awesome. No regrets. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure.